India and England. Hmm. That's a wonderful story, right? There's a bit of drama, there's a bit of enigma around that series. And no wonder this time the five test series is evoking the same reaction. So, will it be India or will it be England who will come out trumps? We will discuss all this and much more with a celebrity guest in our latest episode. Hi, hello. Welcome to our latest episode of House Stat, your window to the world of cricket. Like I said earlier, we've got a distinguished guest who's going to talk more about the England versus India series. It's my great privilege to welcome Ash Turner to our show. Ash, it's a pleasure having you today with me.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on the podcast.
I know you're still smarting under the loss in the Euro finals, but I'm not going to talk about that. If you promise that you're not going to talk about India's loss to Sri Lanka.
I'm sure we can make that deal because I am still a little bit upset. Penalties are never an Englishman's favourite subject at the best of times.
Absolutely. At least this time you didn't lose to Germany.
Well, true. That is one of the few positives that can be taken from it. It wasn't Germany, but I don't think Italy is much of an improvement, to be totally honest with you.
Absolutely. Let's jump quickly on to the actual discussion that we were planning to have. I know India England don't go the same way back as probably the Ashes or even India Australia, but there's always a rivalry that's going on there, right? Whenever England come to India, we thrash you guys. Whenever India go there, you thrash us. So is this five test match series going to be like a revenge series or something?
No, I think it's always a big series because in reality, England and India, we both know we're probably two of the biggest cricketing nations. So it's always going to be a big series because we're two giants going at it and slugging away. And I think almost the fact that we know we aren't normally that strong over in India and Indian over it, normally they struggle over here, almost gives it that little bit of an edge because both teams know that in their conditions they're favourites. And it just always gives you that sort of bit of an underdog story as well. So I think it's a big series. I think it's one that's always very interesting. And this one especially will be interesting because of everything that's happened in the last sort of 18 months with COVID and the various things that have happened in cricket because of it.
I know you were tongue in cheek when you said India and England are two of the biggest nations. My Australian mates will forgive you, Ash, but they won't probably forgive you when you're traveling down under. That's something you've got to be wary about. But like you said, this is a huge series for both teams. I know it's coming in the season where T20 is the flavor. 100 is going on in England, and everyone is interested about what will happen in the T20 World Cup. But Test match is the real flavor. So I still feel that this is a great chance for India to win because it's been ages. Probably I was not even born when India won in England. But whenever India traveled to England, the swinging ball, the mental attitude, is it going to be a repeat this time?
No, I'm hoping it won't be because as much as I'm an England fan, I would like it to be a really, really good series. I think the worry is for England is that if India don't crumble with the bat, England normally of late like to crumble even at home. So there's a lot of pressure I think on both batting sides. I think India might do a little bit better this time. I think maybe someone like Pant, who's going to be a bit more counter-attacking, might be able to just drag out that extra sort of 50, 60 runs that make the difference between an okay or a poor score to actually quite a good score. I think a lot's going to be riding on Kohli, not in the greatest of form, been a while since a century, but it's Kohli, so I'm sure he's going to turn up. I'm sure he's going to score runs. It's going to be very interesting. And as I say, I think India are going to do a bit better with the bat than maybe previously. Whether it's quite enough, that's the difficult question for India. Can they eke out that extra probably 50 to 100 runs in each innings to put themselves in a commanding position?
Interesting that you brought in those names because I was wondering who could be those three key players for India if they have to be successful. I have at least 10 names that are coming up and clouding my brain, but I would like to hear you first, Ash.
I think the first one for me is obviously going to have to be Kohli. I think if we have the Kohli of the last sort of 12 months or so, England will be okay. I think if the Kohli that we know exists comes and has sort of a series, I guess maybe a bit like Smith had in the last Ashes over here, then we know full well that those runs alone will be enough to beat England. Rishabh Pant has got to be the next one for me. I just find he was such a talent, and I don't see him going out there and hitting, say, 100 or 120, 130 that's going to win a game and make him man of the match as such. But I think his ability to just get, say, a quick 40, 50, 60 could be massive in this, because I don't see it being a high-scoring series. So if it is 300 plays 300, if he can add on that extra 50, 60 runs in the second inning, that could be massive for India and could be the difference between winning and losing for sure. And then, because I've picked two batsmen, really, I'm going to have to pick a bowler, and I'm going to pick a little bit of one bit out of the blue, I would say, because I'm not sure whether he'll actually start the series, but Mohammad Siraj, something about him just makes me feel that he's going to be a really, really tough customer in English conditions, and he can make a real difference. I can see him with both his pace and the ability to swing the ball to make real difficulties for the top order and probably also the middle order for England. So if he gets his chance, I think he could be possibly one of the stars of the show.
Wonderful. I think if I don't take Mohammad Siraj's name, there'll be a big commotion in front of my house, because I hail from the same city as Siraj does. But I'm going to risk that. I'm going to look beyond Siraj. Siraj is definitely one of my favorite players, but like you said, I'm not entirely sure he will play the series. So at least at the start of it, my first pick would be Mohammad Shami. The way he bowls in these conditions, the way he hits the deck, and the energy that he brings into the third spell of a day. If you give him the 90th over, if you ask him to bring his 100%, he will do that. So that's the sort of guy, that's the sort of attitude you need in England. And we've seen in the WTC final that whenever Shami came in, he looked like taking a wicket. So he's going to be the difference between India winning and India probably losing. And I'll have to agree with you on Pant. Takes me back to the WTC final. When he was playing on that final day, there were hopes that at least if he stays for one more hour, it could add at least 70, 80 runs. And probably that could have been a difference between India drawing the final and India losing it. That's the kind of scene that Pant sets up. So I'll agree with you on that. Pant is going to be a massive factor. I don't like his keeping skills. I would love Vridman Saha at any point of day. I would love him behind the wickets, but the kind of aura that Pant brings to the crease, that's something which makes me forego his skills behind the wicket. I know there are a lot of Pant fans who are listening this podcast and are trying to get my address. I'm not going to post my address because I fear all those guys. So, and to round up this conversation on the third player, I'm going to slightly differ with you on Kohli. Yes, Kohli's numbers are going to be important. For 2 years, he has not scored an international century, so there's a lot of hunger for him. But one name that comes to my mind when I think of batsmen is Rohit Sharma. I know he's a giant in white ball cricket, and he's got loads and loads of experience playing cricket all over the world. But if you consider him in Test cricket, he's still a novice. So Rohit Sharma has got something to prove. I'm a huge fan of Rohit myself, but when I take the fan out of me and look at it from an analytical angle, prove to be a big hit at the top of the order, nothing like it, because openers are going to be key. If Indian openers can keep the English bowlers at bay for, say, 20 overs, 25 overs, even if the score is 50 for no loss, I'll be happy with that, because England will be tested in those conditions. So Rohit is going to be massive for me. And Kohli, probably not. I know, again, Kohli's fans don't like it because there's always a Kohli versus Rohit duel going on. It's almost like Manchester United versus Liverpool, even when England is playing the Euros. So I'm still going to stick my neck out and say that Rohit Sharma is going to be key. Now, moving on to the other side of it, who are going to be England's biggest guys? For me, the biggest threat would be Sam Curran. Again, I'm not sure if he will play the entire series, but last time when we toured, it was Sam Curran who did all the damage. Sam, if you are listening, please get injured somewhere and get yourself out of the equation. Then comes the new kid on the block. I know Ollie Robinson divides opinion even today, but let's put whatever he has done on Twitter aside. As a cricketer, Ollie Robinson, the way he played against New Zealand, I thought that was fabulous. Everyone started asking, where were you, Ollie? What were you doing all this time? So he looked a natural. He looked a natural with the ball, and even with the bat, he was pretty good. That's one guy I'm going to fear. And because I spoke about two all-rounders, I'm probably going to talk about a batsman, and no more than Joe Root. I really hate that guy when he turns up against India. He just can't get enough of India, and boy, how purely he plays. I mean, I know it hurts when I see him play a chanceless innings. Definitely in England, he's going to be a bigger factor. So I'm silently praying that Joe Root gets punched by David Warner, gets a broken jaw or something.
Yeah, I've got to agree with Joe Root. I think it's probably a massive year, if we're honest, for Joe Root. Obviously, as captain and as a batsman, he struggled a little bit over the last couple of years. I say struggled, he still averages around 40. I mean, you can't really call it a struggle as such. But he's picked up a little bit at the beginning this year. Such a big home series followed by an away Ashes series. I think it's just massive for Root that he performs with the bat and England get some positive results one way or another in these next two test series. So I think it's huge for him. And for me, he's probably the main person for England. If he can score big runs, if he can do his job at what I'd assume will be number 4, then that's huge for England.
Are you going to pick any bowler or an all-rounder?
I'll be honest, when I'm looking at the main 3 for England, I'm not even looking at the bowlers. I think England are going to be strong in the bowling lineup, and that's not really as such England's concern. England's concerns can all come down to the bat. And so 2 players I think I'm going to be almost looking out for, and going to go for Rory Burns opening. I think probably shown after being very, very close to being dropped, that actually probably is England's best opener. And I think it's going to be a real big thing for both him and England. If he can stick around at the top of the order, if he can set that base for England, it's going to be massive for England, and something England will really need, especially when the ball is seaming about, swinging. A bit of a strange one, but I'm going to say Josh Buttler. Again, he was probably another who was so close to being dropped, but it clicked for him. He had a really good summer, and I think he's shown that he really can do it as a test batsman, that Ed Smith wasn't mad, that he really could be the best keeper batsman for England. But it's now whether he can go and do that against a top-class opposition in England and then top-class opposition abroad when we go over to the Ashes. And so I think Buttler, almost a bit like I said with Rishabh Pant, it might not necessarily be that he grinds out 3 or 4 big hundreds. It might be that he only gets 100 this series. But if he can back that up with some good 40s, 50s, 60s, batting probably with the tail at times, batting alongside people like Robinson and Lee, I think that could be, again, another huge difference maker in England's favour if they can eke out them runs towards the bottom end. And if Buttler can just show, like he did last summer, that he can stick about and be that difference maker, hold on, get them runs on the board, eke us over the line, he could be massive for England.
Very interesting. I know the names keep popping up. Even Butler is going to be a threat, but I just hope that he ends up getting a lot of single-digit scores and even gets dropped, because I would love to see Johnny Bairstow coming in. Who could be the surprise package in the series? If you ask me one, I don't know. I personally feel somewhere that Hasib Hamid is going to be a surprise package. I know people will laugh at me, probably even say that he's not in the English plans right now, but there is something. I saw him play in that game, in that practice game against India, and I felt that he's ready to be back in the English side, and he played marvelously. He played a chanceless innings in that first innings, and he looked set to be back in the fold. I know he has had a very horrid time in the past 3-4 years. I personally feel that out of all the openers that England have stacked in their squad as of now, Hamid is probably the best.
Yeah, I think it's great to see him back in form, and I think obviously his 100 versus the Indian side in that warm-up game, and then his 100 this last week for Nottinghamshire, his first ever List A 100 in the One Day Cup. He probably pushes him up a bit higher into people's thoughts and was probably expected when the squad was first announced. And I think he'll get a go at some point, because I'll be honest, I can't see the top three staying the same. I think at least one of them will probably. I just hope it's not too much too soon. I'm hoping that if he does get his chance, he shows that player that we all saw back in India 3 or 4 years ago. And we can say, yes, he really is that talented player that we always thought he was. Yes, he is the England's opener for hopefully the next 6, 7, 8, 9 years. I just worry that maybe he comes in, he has a couple of bad games and it's back to square one again, but hopefully not. And if he plays as well as he has done for Nottinghamshire, I can't disagree with you that he'll have a big part to play in this series.
I know. You're just hoping that he'll be the Donny van de Beek of Manchester United, warm up the bench, hoping that Paul Pogba leaves and he can get into the main side. What is your prediction for the series?
It's a difficult one. I'm going to back England. I think just home conditions will be the difference maker in the end. Because of both sides not being the greatest batting for me in these conditions, I'm only going to expect one game to be rain affected and be a draw. So I'm going to go for 3-1 to England. But although I say 3-1 to England, I think every single test would be exceptionally close, and it won't be a case of a team winning by an innings. It won't be a case of a team winning by 9 wickets, 8 wickets. I think every single one of those 4 tests that I'm predicting result in will come down to literally 2 or 3 wickets, less than 50 runs. I think it's going to be that tie.
I know. It's almost like the previous series, right? They have they're 1-4-1, but at the end of the day, it could so easily have been 3-2 in favor of India, or even 4-1 for India if they had held their nerve. So
yeah,
this is the sort of series that's going to bring those memories back. And like you said, I'm going to go for England, probably 3-1 again, like you said, maybe purely because this is a long series, and in these times when you are so long away from your homes, I know most of the players have their families helping them out, staying with them, and going around in this little break between the WTC final and the start of this series. But there'll be a mental fatigue as they go in between the third and the fourth and the fifth test. So it's going to take that extra effort from both sides to take them past the line. I'm going to go for England purely because of that, because Indians don't have those strong characters who can push them past the line. Especially if Kohli has a poor series, then they're going to struggle. Ash, I think that's a great discussion we have had, and I hope that you and we both are wrong, and India prove that the series win in Australia is not a flash in the pan. They come out strongly from this series as well. So that's a big hope. But one thing is for certain, we are in for a cracker of a series.
I think it'll be a great series. Looking forward to watching it. And thank you again for having me on. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And I hope we're right. I hope England win. And I hope it shows that me and you know a little bit about cricket.
I hope I'm wrong. See, generally, whenever I take sides, I end up being wrong. Which is why there's a slight secret I'm letting out. I never back India.
Smart tactic.
Small tactic, and I hope Ravi Shastri is hearing this somewhere and saying that you join my back end team. Wonderful, Ash. It's a great pleasure talking to you, and I hope that you come back to our show maybe for the Ashes series, and then we will discuss how India thrashed England and proved you and I wrong.
Hopefully so. I'll be back. I'm not sure about that. The getting thrashed by India, but I wouldn't be too shocked if you do beat us.
So, friends, That's Ash Turner with us, speaking about how England versus India is going to pan out. Well, both of us agreed on one thing, that this series is going to be a cracker. What do you think? How do you see this series panning out? Do write in the comments below and do not forget to follow us. That's it from my side. This is Sridhar Bhamadi signing off. Go India.